Alright, let's try this one more time. So, I tried making this podcast back in 2020, back when we were all in lockdown, hence the title, My Isolation Podcast. I did about 3 episodes, and then after that, I sort of just gave up. I think towards the end of the first lockdown, I think everyone was just so sick of being stuck inside all the time that it kind of burnt out a lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of people who made YouTube channels dedicated to just being isolated and doing like isolation diaries and stuff. And well, they gave up after like 4 weeks. So I did about 3 episodes. I really did, but I actually really did enjoy it, and decided I'm gonna try and bring it back because I enjoyed doing it. It was nice just to turn on a microphone and then just talk about whatever the hell I wanted to talk about for about an hour, or in this episode's case, two, because we're doing the whole of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe today. That's pretty much it. We're going to go through everything from WandaVision to Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, and I'm going to be talking about my opinions on them. And as for the name, why I'm sticking with the title, even though we're not in isolation anymore, to be deeply honest with you people, I really cannot be bothered to change the name. Really cannot be asked to change the name, and I feel like names like God, like the Conor O'Donnell Hour would just be cringe as hell. So I am definitely not. I'm just sticking with my isolation podcast because that's the closest, best name I can come up with. If people want to suggest a new name, fine, but I'm probably just going to stick with that. So today I'm going to go through the whole of Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, just to briefly go through Phases 1 and 3. I absolutely love Phases 1 and 3. I would say Phase 3 is my favourite. Phase 2 is probably my least favourite, because it has the most films I don't like. And Phase 1, well, there's some films in Phase 1 I don't like Iron Man 2 and Incredible Hulk. It was their first go, so I'm not going to take points off of that. And most of the films in there are really good, and the first Avengers movie is one of the most revolutionary and most important superhero movies of all time, really, until Endgame and Infinity War came out, which just kind of blew everyone away. So that's my thoughts on Phases 1 and 3 very briefly. So, and also just to get this out of the way, I've never read the comic books. I've only watched the films. I know I'm a dirty casual viewer. So if there's stuff like from the comic books I don't mention here, feel free to correct me. If I say anything that's wrong, feel free to correct me. I'm just going off what I've seen in the films and what little research I've done on the events in the comic books. Without further ado, though, let's get started. So the first one we're going to be talking about is WandaVision. So it was kind of weird to have Phase 4 start off with a TV show, especially when you consider the fact that when the slate was announced all the way back in 2019, WandaVision was not actually the starting point. The starting point was supposed to be Black Widow, the Black Widow movie. But because of COVID and everyone being isolated and Marvel having to change the schedule around, we actually ended up a whole year without any Marvel content, that being, of course, 2020. Which I think actually, in a way, kind of helped Phase 4 a little bit, because I do remember people being a bit out of the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe after Endgame and Far From Home. And I think having that year-long break, while not planned, helped it a little bit, because I do remember when WandaVision was coming out, people getting excited and being like, oh, yes, let's get back into the MCU again. And I think after the depressing year that was 2020, I think we needed some superhero fun. Basically. So it was weird to have it start with WandaVision, but at the same time it was kind of nice, because a good choice, because we had been in the MCU for about a year, and the way WandaVision starts off with this building this mystery, it kind of makes us think, well, what's happened in this universe that we've not seen in a year? And it starts off really well with being this kind of parody of old sitcoms, and it really, at the start, the first 3 or 4 episodes, it really builds up the mystery towards what is happening to Wanda and what's happening in this town. Why is everything a sitcom? While the sitcom elements aren't particularly funny, there are a few jokes in there that make you laugh. I don't think that maybe was their focus. I think they were using that sitcom backdrop as a way to pay tribute to sitcoms in general, but also a way to build up the mystery of what's happening here and what's been happening since the events of Far From Home. Um, and the parodies, I think, were really good. They were really good at parodying them. While the parodies weren't exactly funny, there was just kind of uh, charming and quirky just to see them actually go all the way with some of them. Like in the very, very first episode, very like the black and white era of sitcoms, they had like, when Wanda was like using her powers to levitate plates and cutlery and all that stuff, you could see that they made it as if that, it was done on strings as it would have been back in that time. I don't know if as it was actually done on strings. I really hope so. I swear to God, if they did that with CGI, then like Marvel's relying way too much on CG, which is a problem in Phase 4, which we will get to later on. Um, but I really did enjoy the tributes they paid to it, and the fact that like they did pay tribute to things like Bewitched and Malcolm in the Middle and The Office, and going for the different eras of sitcoms. And I liked how in the end it was all due to this kind of when Wanda was a child, she would watch these to learn English, but she also created kind of a safe zone, a safe space for herself, and a comfort zone for herself as well. I really enjoyed that deeper meaning to it as well. So I really did enjoy. For the most part, I did enjoy WandaVision, but my problem with it is the same problem I have with a lot of these MCU TV Disney Plus shows, where they start off really, really well. Like the first few episodes, you're really getting into them. It's really interesting you, and then it's the finale episode. It's the last episode that lets you down, or that lets it down. It falls completely apart because the MCU shows, they build up and up and up, and then they build up way too much for the amount of episodes they have, which is why I'm so glad the next Daredevil series is 18 episodes long, because a lot of these shows, they build up and up and up, and then the finale comes and it just comes crashing down. They have to try and wrap everything up, and it feels rushed. And they do feel, a lot of them do feel like movies, like they do feel like films that they have just taken and chopped up into episodes, which is a running problem that not just Marvel, but a lot of the other Disney Plus TV shows have had, like Obi-Wan and that Santa Claus show with Tim Allen that came out in December. But I mean, and that happened, and then obviously there was the whole Quicksilver Evan Peters thing, where because with the whole Ralph Boner joke, which really did piss me off, because Evan Peters' version of Quicksilver is my favorite version of him on film. I never liked Aaron Taylor Johnson's version from Age of Ultron. I just found that version of the character very annoying and very irritating. Evan Peters' Quicksilver was more quirky but more fun. He took kind of the aspect of him being quick, being a quickster, and they had fun with it, and it was really enjoyable, especially those scenes where that slows down. It shows him using his speed to his advantage, in Days of Future Past, and what was the other one? Days of Future Past and Apocalypse. Probably one of the best scenes in Apocalypse, because Apocalypse was garbage. And he really did set up the multiverse well. Like you see him and you're like, oh my god, he's back. It's that version, but it's from the Fox movies. They're going into that territory, and you really got a sense of like the multiverse is starting. That we're gonna get so many good, interesting things here, and then it turns out it's just a guy called Ralph Boner, and it just comes all crashing down. And it's just a bit of a piss take, really. I know it was meant to be a comedy, like a sitcom and all that stuff, but it was just one of those things where, it was good to see him again as Quicksilver, and then it turns out he wasn't Quicksilver, he was Ralph Boner. And I was like, oh wow, a boner joke. That's not, immature and childish, is it? But apart from that, though, like, it did do a good job setting up the multiverse. Agatha was a really good villain, I felt. The kids added a good aspect to it, making Wanda a mother, and how the fact that she had to protect her children from Agatha. And I mean, Agatha being the villain, she was a good villain, but her being the twist villain, like the reveal of her being the villain was kind of obvious. It was really obvious she was the bad guy. It was not even like, it wasn't even subtle, really. But it did show, and it did a good job with Wanda's arc that led on to Multiverse of Madness, where she got hold of the Darkhold, and that corrupted her, and that started really, with that end credit scene, that really started to corrupt her quite a lot. And also the backstories as well as to how it happened. She finds out they've taken Vision's body and they're dissecting it, and they had a house they were going to get, and she uses that to enslave this entire town by accident, of course. But you really get into Wanda's trauma and her pain and her suffering as well. And I think that that all those elements are so strong that the whole final episode not being great, it kind of, you know, it's not a big deal. And it does set up her arc in Doctor Strange 2 very well, in my opinion. And it also kind of slightly retcons her backstory, because obviously in Age of Ultron they claim that her and Pietro were they were experiments by the government. They were government experiments. Obviously, this show establishes that actually they were born with their powers, so it kind of establishes that her and Pedro are mutants, which obviously is the start of Marvel's whole kind of planting the seeds for the mutants. They're trinkling them a little bit. It kind of feels kind of this whole kind of thing where it feels like the mutants that they're coming. The mutants are coming. And I do think that eventually it'll be revealed that she is Magneto's daughter and Pietro is Magneto's son. I do think they will eventually get around to doing that at some point in the future. But overall, WandaVision I thought was really good. I thought it was a decent, solid start to Phase 4. Not a perfect start to Phase 4, but solid enough and decent enough. I am looking forward to Agatha Coven of Chaos. I know that Ralph Boner is actually in it, so maybe they could retcon that, and it turns out he actually is the Fox Quicksilver. Please retcon that. Please. But overall, I thought it was fine. A pretty decent start to Phase 4. Moving on, we've got to Captain America and the Winter Soldier. I know when this show came out, it was Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but they changed it. They changed it at the title of the end, so I'm just calling it Captain America and Winter Soldier because Sam Wilson's Captain America now, so deal with it. But this show, I really, 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 really enjoyed. Actually, this is probably one of my favorite Disney Plus shows. WandaVision, I liked. This show, I really did enjoy. I really loved this show. I thought the political commentary in there was really interesting and really did interest you. It really intrigued you a lot. I felt that the flag smashes were an interesting concept. Granted, the whole I think apparently there was a thing where they were gonna have their original plan was to spread a deadly virus, but that was removed because for obvious reasons. I do think that could have made them a little bit stronger. But in terms of being this group that Captain America has to fight against. I felt like that they were actually quite interesting because they're not really bad guys. But they technically are, but they're not after money. They're not after like world domination. They just want the world to go back to how it was during the blip. And I feel like that's actually really interesting and quite intriguing. Like, there's this group of people that actually really enjoyed while everyone else was, suffering. These people actually took advantage of the blip, and now that that's gone and the world's pretty much back to how it is. But after the blip, they want to go back to how it was before, when Thanos snapped his fingers. And I actually really did enjoy their dilemma, and I loved how you got the two sides of the argument as well. It didn't pick a side. It didn't pick a side or anything. It just showed both sides and both their arguments. And I feel like, it was probably kind of like how in Civil War, you understood Tony's side, you understood Steve's side. It didn't really leave you to pick a side, but more, it didn't make you pick a side, but that was more up to you as the audience member. You picked, it was which side did you want to go for? Or maybe you just didn't want to go to any of them and you just was kind of in the middle. I felt like that was really good and really compelling. I liked Sam's dilemma where, he gave up the shield because he felt like he couldn't, he claims that he couldn't live up to Steve. But in reality, we visit that other, super soldier, and he basically just flat out says it, they'll never let a black man be Captain America. And that sort of, that theme of, race and everything that comes into it. And the fact that Sam has to get over that hurdle and sort of go, no, Steve left this to me, and I'm gonna be Captain America, and I'm gonna be as good of a Captain America as I can be. And watching him grow and develop, train and with the shield, and finally get that outfit and that really cool outfit and costume. When he steps in that last episode in the full gear, I mean that was terrific. And I'm really looking forward to Captain America 4, or New World Order as it's called, because I think that movie, I'm glad he's getting a movie, and that movie is going to be really interesting, especially if they've got the leader coming in finally from the Incredible Hulk. Which, I mean, I'm glad they're acknowledging that movie more, even though I don't like it very much. I'm glad they're acknowledging that more and making that more, yeah, that is canon, because there was a long time people thought that wasn't canon for some reason. They all thought that was like a sequel to Yang Lee version, even though it very clearly isn't a sequel to Yang Lee 2003 Hulk movie. I don't know why people thought that, but who knows. And also, we also got, Bucky's dilemma as well, where he's trying to deal with, his, he's not brainwashed anymore, but he's trying really hard to deal with all of that. Um, Deal with all of that, helping out this father whose son Bucky actually killed. So he's trying really hard to like help this man out and kind of in a weird way kind of redeem himself. But in the end, he sort of has to accept that he's never going to be past this, and well, he's never going to live past this, and he has to live with these memories when he was brainwashed. And obviously, there's obviously that conflict with him and him Sam, where he says, "Oh, why couldn't I have been Captain America? Steve gave it to you. Why are you giving it up?" And it's like, Bucky's done a lot of messed up shit. I mean, he was brainwashed, but he did do a lot of messed up shit though. So that's probably, I don't think Bucky is going to be a good Captain America. John Walker, I felt, was a really interesting character. I loved how messed up he was, and how the series went on, the more fucked up he became, especially after he took the super soldier serum. Like that scene where he just pummels that member of the Flag Smashers to death. Like he's literally like hitting, like using the shield as like an actual proper weapon, where in the past it's always been used as a thing, not as a weapon, but for Captain America to defend himself from attacks and superhero like punches and all that stuff with its metal. But with John Walker, he's actually like grabbing it and he's actually throwing it down on like on this member of the Flag Smashers, and he's literally like just smashes his head and kills him, like squashes him, like kind of like how Mr. D'Onofrio's Kingpin squashed that guy's head in Daredevil with the car door in season 1. Like that, it was just brutal. And it was a good way for them to. He was a very interesting, compelling character. You didn't like him, but you didn't really like him, even towards the end. And I think it's going to be really interesting seeing how he acts to it in the Thunderbolts movie they're making, and see how he interacts with the other team members as this kind of messed up kind of Captain America. Also, Zemo, it was really good to see Zemo again, and he was in the mask for a very brief period, but it was really good to see that mask in. And he was good as always. I mean, having him kind of mess with the two of them, it was really interesting to see. And yeah, it was just good to see Zemo again. And overall, it used the 6 episodes format well. Like it flowed really good in my opinion. It didn't felt dragged out like a lot of these other Marvel shows tend to do. But yeah, it flowed very well, and overall, it was probably one of my favorite MCU TV shows of this phase. Yeah, so Captain America: Winter Soldier, pretty solid time. And yeah, and hopefully New World Order is a good movie. Going on to my second favorite of Phase 4, Loki Season 1. I feel like it's easily probably one of the best Disney Plus shows so far. I liked the really good kind of sci-fi edge it had to it. I also really liked how, because I remember when I first heard they were doing a Loki show, I was like, oh god, no, come on. He died in Infinity War. He had a really impactful death. Why are we ruining that? But then Endgame came out and he disappears with Tesseract, and we realized that, oh, this is actually the version of Loki from the original Avengers. And it was really cool to actually see that version of Loki redevelop all over again. You sort of see him, go through another transformation, but a completely different one. And you get to see the character become good, like kind of all over again. I feel like that's actually quite interesting, seeing how it's a different path. It's the same development, but he goes through a different kind of path and a different kind of arc as well. And having him kind of, the DVA as well, they're an interesting organization to have, especially with the whole, branching timelines and the introduction of variants as well, which is really good, because then we can have, actors from previous Marvel movies that aren't MCU can come in at any time. And it does a good job also setting up the multiverse as well, pushing that further, because this is the multiverse saga. And, watching him develop again in an all new way was kind of fascinating. The other Loki variants I actually really liked, especially Richie Grant when he was dressed up in that the old school Loki costume, I'm guessing, because I know that Marvel tends to do that. They did that with WandaVision, where she was dressed up in her old Wanda outfit for that Halloween episode, and then in Thor: Love and Thunder, he was dressed in his old original costume when he was running through the forest as a little kid. So I like it when Marvel, incorporates those old school kind of costumes. And I liked the other Loki variants. I like the big buff Loki, the kid Loki, the Loki that was president. I think there was a Loki that was a crocodile or an alligator. I can't remember. I can't really remember. There was definitely a lot of interesting variants, and then there was also the female Loki, whose name I cannot remember, but she was a really cool character, and she was able to get across the characteristics of Loki, like the anger and the aggression and kind of the hatred and the betrayal that Loki feels, but also making the character her own. But the definite one was Kang, or rather, this variant of Kang. A prime Kang we're going to see in Iron Man the Wasp: Quantumania, which came out. This is recorded on the 18th of February, so that came out yesterday. Which I'm still debating whether I'm seeing or not, because those reviews, man. The last MCU film that got reviews like that was Eternals, and that sucked, which you'll find out later on. But Kang was a really interesting villain. This version of him, anyway, this variant of him, which is less like aggressive, less less angry and more crazy and more like kind of insane kind of version, where because of how many variants there's been, how much he's gone through the multiverse, this variant has just reached insanity, and he's just gone insane, and it's scary, and it's still scary and terrifying. I mean, you watch him, how like psychopathic he is, and how menacing he is, and how much tension there is in the Ant-Man trailers, and you see clips of him in those movies where he's so like serious and so like dark and menacing, and you get to this version where that's more crazy and more insane, but it's still, there's that uneasy feeling you get when you're around him. He definitely holds up to Thanos. Definitely, you can even from this you can tell he's going to hold up to Thanos so well. And yeah, Jonathan Majors as well. He just does a great job. I mean, Jonathan Majors is such a good actor, and he's just rocking it right now. And so Jonathan Majors is doing such a good job right now. He's at a great point in his career. He's going to kill it as Kang in Quantumania, which I'm still on the fence about seeing. I may go see it, I may not. Who knows? The only things about Loki I didn't really enjoy was episodes. I think episodes 3 and 4 did lose me a little bit. I think there was just something about them that just felt a bit empty. Just felt a bit like filler in a weird way. But obviously after that, episode 5 and 6 and those picked up, and then the show got back to being good again. As well as that, also there was that scene where Loki and female Loki made out. Very weird, very uncomfortable, very weird. I just gotta say, people complained about the same-sex kiss in Eternals, but apparently Loki getting off with another version of himself is completely fine. Apparently, I don't understand that logic either. And what else did I like about Loki? Owen Wilson's character, I can't remember his name. I think it's Modas. I know it's definitely not Morbius. It's definitely not Morbius, because fuck me, I'm not watching that movie ever. I'm not watching Morbius ever. Like, that movie is just horrible. But Owen Wilson's character was also really interesting. It was good to have a straight man to Loki's kind of crazy villain esque character, and he was just a really interesting character as well. When that final scene as well, when he doesn't remember who Loki is, that was very haunting. That was very haunting. And it was like, oh no, what's going on here? And you see that fucking statue of Kang in the DVA as well. Oh my god, that was just so good, so good. And yeah, Loki overall was a fun show. I can't wait for season 2. I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully season 2 is good. On to the first film of Phase 4, we've got Black Widow. The film that, everyone was demanding a Black Widow movie for years and years and years. For years and years, people were demanding a Black Widow movie. And finally, after all this time, we finally get a Black Widow movie. And it's okay. It's just okay. It's not the best. It's not terrible. It's not terrible by any means necessary, but it definitely could have been better. Definitely could have been better. It could have been much more. It could have been more stronger. I just felt like this movie was just all right. It just had that all right feeling. It definitely could have been more, and definitely could have been better. There were some things about it that I'll get onto in a little bit. Let's go on to the things that, its placement in the MCU was weird, because it's like this film really should have come out during Phase 3. I think it was Full Fat Video that suggested that maybe it should have come out during Phase 3 and then Captain Marvel should have come out during Phase 4. I actually agree with that. I think that would have been a much better plan for this movie. Because its placement just feels weird. How like we're moving forward, but now we're going back to in the middle. I mean, yeah, of course there was that gap, where we want to find out what happened to Natasha after the Civil War because she was on the run. And it was good to have a good fill in that kind of hole, but I don't know. I feel like especially after the character's death as well, it's just weird seeing her again. After she died after a really good death in Endgame, as well. Really good death in Endgame, and yeah, I mean its placement was a bit odd. Story was a little bit basic, and it didn't touch upon the Budapest mission, which I think everyone thought it was going to. I thought everyone thought it was going to be the Budapest mission that she kept going on about in the first Avengers movie, but they barely touched upon that. That was like few flashbacks, and that was it. I felt like that could have been such a good move, like a whole movie in of itself. But instead, it's about her and about her family, which is fine because you want to her family are actually quite interesting. Especially Elena, who's played by Florence Pugh. Like Florence Pugh in this movie, she shines. Florence Pugh is just killing it right now. I mean, I watched her recently in Little Women, from a few years ago. She absolutely sells the hell out of that movie, and she does so well in this role as well as Elena. Like she and Scarlett Johansson have such good chemistry with each other, and she's very likable as well. And a lot of the other actors as well, like not Kate Winslet. There's another Kate. I can't remember her name, but it's the one from The Favorite. She plays Natasha's fake mother, so to speak. And David Harbour plays what is it? What's the name of his Russian Captain America? I'm gonna call him because I can't remember the name of his alter ego. I think it's Red something. But I really like their kind of the dysfunctional family almost because they're not really a family. They were brought together by the government to like infiltrate, and they got separated, and now like they wasn't a real family. But it was good to see that kind of dynamic as well in the movie, and they were also just really good characters. Some of the CGI was a bit wonky, but that's kind of a running problem in Phase 4, which we'll get on to in a minute. But overall, the movie was just average, just not very memorable as well. Like I'm struggling to remember a lot of stuff from it. It was okay, like it wasn't that bad, but it was just one of those things where it's like I'm struggling really hard to think of things to talk about. Like I've got my notes here, and I've only got like 5 bullet points as well, because like that's literally the only I could barely remember anything from this movie. The one thing I do remember though was the villain Taskmaster. Very underwhelming, and definitely could have been better. The whole kind of like she's being manipulated by Ray Fisher because Serum did it. It's just a bit. It's not very impactful. And doesn't create a very good villain. And I just feel like you could have gone much more deeper with that. Like maybe Ray Fisher's character actually does die in the Budapest mission. Like he dies in that explosion, but she survives. And to avenge her father's death, she decides she's going to, become the best like soldier she can be. She trains herself. She watches old footage of the Avengers fighting and stuff. She mimics their movements. She trains herself really, really hard. She makes the suit herself, and then she trains all the other like Black Widows herself to avenge her father's death. I feel like that could have given that character a little bit more weight to it, rather than Serum did it, and it was another guy the whole time, which was boring. And I know that she isn't going to be in Thunderbolts Taskmaster, but you definitely could have just had her in Thunderbolts anyway, and not have it be, I'm evil because Serum did it, basically. And yeah, it was just overall it was just, I don't know, it was just average. It wasn't bad by any means necessary, but it definitely wasn't a great start to the movie slate of Phase 4. Now going on to the first project of Phase 4 that I really hated, which is What If. Boring, dull, not interesting. I literally just waited for all the episodes to come out and just binge them. Honestly, I just wasn't interested in this show. It had potential, but I don't know, there's something about it I just did not like. I think it was just the scenarios were a bit, not really, the what if scenarios they came up with just didn't grasp me as much. And there were some cool moments in there, like when Vision kills Thanos, like slices him in half. Like that was really cool. I really liked that. Had potential to redeem it. It has potential to redeem itself with season 2 if that ever comes out, but I don't know. The zombie episode was okay. The only episode about it that I really did enjoy was the Hank Pym one, where Hank Pym is the bad guy. Like, that was proper good. Like, that was really interesting, suspenseful, and at first you're thinking to yourself, what's going on here? And then you find out it's him, and he's in the yellow jacket suit from the first Ant-Man film, and he's just gone all evil and insane. And it just shows that like, he's pretty fucked up, Hank Pym. One wrong move, he could easily go insane and go crazy. So that was the only thing about it that I actually liked. From What If. The only episode I liked. The animation was pretty good though. Yeah, literally that was the only thing. So What If, hopefully if season 2 does end up coming out, I don't know what's going on with that. I think it got removed from the slate. I think a lot of Marvel animation stuff got removed from the slate, didn't it? Like, it got delayed or something. Like X-Men 97's been delayed, and that zombie show they had coming out, that's been delayed. The Spider-Man show they had coming out, that's been delayed. Maybe not even coming out at all. God knows what's happening on that end. I could not be bothered to keep track of that. So yeah, What If? It was alright. It was okay. It wasn't, well, no, it was bad. it was dull, boring, and not interesting. What was interesting though was the next movie, Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. Honestly, I really enjoyed this one. It was a great film. Sim Liu, I think that name, as Shang-Chi, the main character, very likable, very interesting. You love this man. As soon as he appears on screen and he starts doing push-ups in his room, immediately you're like, yes, my bruh, my guy. He was just very good, and he worked well with Aquafina, I think that's the name of the actress, as Katie. Like, Katie was actually very funny. Like, the actress who plays her, she's very hit and miss for me. Some things she's good in, some things she's bad in. In this one, she's very good. She's very funny. The scene when they get Wong drunk as well, that was hilarious. Very, very hilarious. And I love the fact the choreography as well, like the fight, like the martial arts choreography. That's what I think made this movie so terrific. It was something like new they hadn't seen before. Like, you're watching a superhero movie, obviously, and it's an action sequence as well. Like, that's normal, but the way that it's choreographed, in the way that in a sense of a martial arts movie, gives it a brand new kind of edge to it. And like the opening sequence with and they said Mandalorian for a second there, the Mandarin and his wife, that they're having that early fight, and the way it's choreographed and stuff like that, it doesn't even feel like a fight. It feels more like a dance. It's kind of beautiful, kind of slow dance, and it's really gorgeous scenery, as well. It was such a good to see on screen as well in the cinema. And the martial arts elements, they worked so well in the film's favor as well. I've heard people say they're a bit too choreographed, but I feel like they were fine. And XU is a very compelling character as well. Shang-Chi's sister. I like the fact that she's being set up as the villain for the next film. I think that's going to cause quite a lot of interesting and fascinating like conflict for the next film. So hopefully we'll hopefully see that in the next Shang-Chi movie, whenever that comes out, like 5 years maybe, knowing the MCU. But the real icing the cake was like the Mandarin, as in like the real Mandarin as well. Like, I'm so glad they retconned that whole thing from Iron Man 3, and I'm glad Ben Kingsley came back in this, to come back as that character, because as the fake Mandarin, because he was so funny in this one, and they really did well, like showing how just naive this character really is. Like, when he's going on about Planet of the Apes, and he thinks that they are actual apes, not like guys in suits. That line just made me laugh, honestly. That was so hilarious. But the real Mandarin as well, definitely one of the best villains seen in the MCU, like hands down. Like, he is fucked up. He is badass. He will fuck you up if you go on the wrong side of him. Like, he is brutal. And seeing him and Shang-Chi's relationship, as well as the sister's relationship as well, their relation, like seeing that kind of dysfunctional relationship, with him training Shang-Chi, and Shang-Chi, actually does kill his target, and he has to live with that. He doesn't want to come back. Like, that creates such a good conflict between the two of them. And then eventually, he sacrifices himself and he dies at the end. But yeah, and I personally, I loved it. I mean, the dragon as well was really cool. I really liked Shang-Chi and Legend of the Ten Rings. It was just such a good, enjoyable time at the cinema. And, I cannot wait for the sequel, which will come out soon. Like, probably during Phase 6, I imagine, because they've got so many empty slots for that film, for that slate. Unfortunately, moving on to the next movie that wasn't very good was Eternals. Now, let me start off by saying this. This is not the worst. I wouldn't say this is the worst MCU film I've seen. I wouldn't say this is the worst Marvel film I've seen. Honestly, there's a film called X-Men Origins Wolverine that might want to have a word review about that, because honestly, that movie is way, 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 way more worse than Eternals. Like, Fan 4 sticks worse than Eternals. That being said, though, Eternals is not good. It's not good. It's dull. It's boring. It's just dull and boring. Like, these characters aren't really interesting. I can barely remember their names, if I'm being honest. Yeah, and I think the thing that suffers it the most is the fact that there's no clear direction for the movie. Like, Chloe Zhao does the best she can. Like, Chloe Zhao is a good director, a really great director. I mean, the woman's got a fucking Oscar, for Christ's sake. She's a really great filmmaker. But she, like, there's clearly no direction here, and that's not her fault either. I think a lot of that has to come with the fact that her and Marvel are very clear. There's very clear lot of indoor fighting going on about what the movie needs to be and what direction they want to go with it. She clearly wants to go in a completely different direction. They're quite scared about going in that direction. So there's a lot of indoor fighting going on. She wants something different. They want to make sure they're not sure about it, which is why I feel like a lot of the Avengers references in this film, and I felt like that in the trailers for this film as well, but a lot of Avengers references in this movie felt really forced. I think because the movie's trying its hardest to be as different as possible, that a lot of Avengers references are like, oh yeah, Doctor Strange, oh yeah, the Avengers, oh yeah, who's gonna lead them? It just comes with so forced because the movie's trying to be so different, and it just feels like Marvel's going, remember guys, this is set in the MCU, and it's like, we know that. We saw the Marvel logo at the beginning. It doesn't matter. CGI, a lot of it looks unfinished, but that's to be expected with that phase, especially with Phase 4. God. But it's not the worst thing I've seen. A lot of the X-Men films are much worse than Eternals. The same-sex kiss, I didn't see a problem with it. Like, it's fine. Lasts like 2 seconds. There's actually no reason to cause controversy over that. Like, it's fine. It's honestly fine. And the cliffhanger at the end, it was interesting. Seeing them get taken away. I just don't know if it's gonna get resolved or not, because this movie didn't do great at the box office. I don't think so, and didn't do great critically either. They might bring it up in like another movie or something, but who knows, man? It might not get resolved. And Patton Oswalt's character at the very end looked horrible. Like, that was not a good CG model. Not a good CG model at all. And Harry Styles was fine at the end, like a Star Fox. I mean, I don't really care. I'm not seeing him in enough films to... I'm not seeing enough films, really, to, to really, to like, say about he's acting or not. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, that's Eternals. Not the best movie, not the worst, but I wouldn't watch it again. Simple as. Let's go on to the next project, which is Hawkeye, the Hawkeye TV show. Now, this show, I actually, despite the fact that, again, the last episode is the weakest episode, and, it builds up, and it just comes crashing down at the end, I still really enjoyed it for what it was. Like, I enjoyed the series enough to, again, like WandaVision, look past that last episode. Jeremy Renner just doing a great job as per usual, because it's Jeremy Renner, and he's played his character for ages, and just seeing his character finally get his own time to shine was great. And it's and I really like the fact they added in the hard of hearing element of his character now, which makes sense. After doing what he does for so long, you would lose your hearing, like, especially from all those explosions, like, Jesus. Especially after the events of Endgame as well, like that fucking big explosion Thanos does at the Avengers headquarters. I mean, that was going to affect your hearing one way or the other. Haley Steinfeld as Kate Bishop, very likable, a very entertaining character. And the fact that she's a massive Hawkeye fangirl as well, and she's, I can see her take it, and she's quirky, and Haley Steinfeld is a great actress anyway. She did such a great job as Spider-Gwen into the Spider-Verse, and in Bumblebee as well. Like, that was such a good movie, Bumblebee. The only good live-action Transformers movie, unless if Rise of the Beast turns out to be good, which, fingers crossed. But she did such a good job as well, and she worked so well with Florence Pugh, who's back as Elena, and is on, like, Florence Pugh is one of the best performers Elena in this show. Like, she's quirky, funny, psychopathic, and her and Haley Steinfeld work so good together, creating this weird frenemy ship, I guess, where they kind of like each other, but but at the same time, she's trying to kill Clint for reasons that she was lied to, and she and Kate Bishop wants to stop that. And again, Florence Pugh does such a good job, but yeah, the setup as well. Like, I really like how simple the setup was. The fact that Clint, all he wants to do is just go home for Christmas. That's all he wants to do. He just wants to pack up and go home for Christmas. But things get in the way of that, and as things do in the Avengers world, and yeah. And the stakes. I love how the stakes get higher and higher and higher in each episode. It goes from him just wanting to go home for Christmas, and then just gets to the point where it's like, yeah, that might not be happening. And eventually he does go home for Christmas, which is great. Other things about it, I really liked Echo as a character. I really liked how he had a deaf character in the MCU. He had one in Eternals as well, which is good. Representation does matter. And the actress is actually deaf as well, but it was good to have her, see her kick ass and everything. I liked her relationship with the Kingpin. We'll get to him as well. Like, and the fact that she's after trying to avenge her father, who Kingpin ends up killing in the end. So yeah, which was that was a twist and a half. And so, of course, but yeah, let's get to the big boy. Let's get to the big man himself, the Kingpin. My God, seeing him back. Vincent D'Onofrio is on top form once again, back from the Daredevil Netflix shows. It was so good to see him again, and he's not changed. Obviously, this version is a bit more slightly lighthearted and not as aggressive and as violent as he was in the Daredevil show. But hey, you know what? It's so good to see him again. I don't fucking care. Yeah, and like what was great about that though was that on the episode, I think it was episode 5, when they're looking for the security camera and Kate Bishop goes, "Hey, who's this guy that my mom's with?" And it turns out, and because like, oh yeah, that's the Kingpin, and it shows a picture of the Kingpin on the security camera. The day that episode aired was the same day No Way Home came out in the UK, and obviously Daredevil makes a comeback in that episode. So and I watched that episode and No Way Home on the same day. So seeing No Way Home, seeing Kingpin and Daredevil both return to the MCU on the exact same day was just amazing to me. Like, that was just so good. Seeing those two like come back, and I cannot wait to see them come back and butt heads again in Daredevil Born Again. That show is going to be fire. Absolute fire. Absolute fire that show will be. I didn't like the way though that Kingpin got taken out at the end, when Echo shot him, because it's like it did do a bit of a disservice. Like, this is the same overpowered being that literally crushed a guy's head in a door. And I do believe that Daredevil's canon, because obviously I do think the Daredevil shows are canon. I don't think for a second they're not canon, to be honest. And it's just like he's so overpowered. He's the most overpowered like being in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and that's the thing that takes him out. Like, gunshots. Like, I know he's gonna come back blind and partially blind. He'll probably get his eyesight back eventually. But yeah, it was just a bit, I don't know, it's just a bit lame, especially a bit of a disservice to the character of the Kingpin, who is such a good character to begin with. But Hawkeye, overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought Hawkeye was a good time. Last episode was a bit of a letdown, but it's enjoyable enough. Good to watch around Christmas time, I would reckon. But now let's get on to the best entry in Marvel Phase 4, Spider-Man No Way Home. Oh my God, this movie is terrific. This film is just, it was just seeing it in the cinema was so good, and it felt like it kept the John Hughes elements of the previous two movies, but this felt like a bit of like a return to form. I'm not just saying that because we have Andrew and Toby back, we have Doc Ock and Green Goblin, all those other villains back. But just the fact that it felt like a classic Spider-Man movie again, like the weight, the emotion, everything, the romance, everything you loved about the previous movies is finally here, and it just feels back again. And it feels very fitting as well, considering this is the end of Tom Holland's first trilogy. And speaking of Tom Holland, like him, Zendaya, the actor that plays Ned, they all do such a great job in this movie. Like, this is one of Tom Holland's best performances as Spider-Man and Peter Parker, like, easily. And the dilemma as well, like having that, his identity is out. Like, he's one of the very few superheroes where identity is everything to him, and it's out there, and everyone knows who he is now. And it deals with it in a way where it's so interesting, like the conflict as well. Like, people go from liking Spider-Man to now being against him because they think he killed Mysterio, because of J. Jonah Jameson, who J.K. Simmons, by the way, absolutely kills it as J. Jonah Jameson, but that's more to be expected. I really hope they go back to him being like part of a newspaper in the next movie, and they do kind of ditch the whole Alex Jones thing for the next film. But who knows? Who knows? I just want to see J.J. Jameson run a newspaper again, to be honest. And it's really good to see that kind of play out in cinema anyway. I do think the Spectacular Spider-Man TV show, that anime series, did this plotline a little bit better, because in that show there's an episode where Venom outs Peter Parker as Spider-Man, but obviously people don't know if to believe him or not. Like, people don't know if he is Spider-Man, so it's a good way where he has to try and like convince people that Peter Parker isn't Spider-Man, which is a good dilemma to have. But this film really did delve with that pretty well, and it was good to see all this kind of commentary on what happened, and fake news and all that other stuff as well, like how Peter Parker was framed essentially for Mysterio's death. If Mysterio is even dead, which I don't think he is. I think Mysterio is alive and well. And watching people get rallied up and like actually take Mysterio's side, like throwing bricks at this wall, Mysterio forever, and all that stuff, was just it was such good drama and good conflict as well to have, which these Spider-Man movies haven't lacked. Like, don't get me wrong, like obviously Homecoming kept it grounded, got a bit more conflict in Far From Home. This reached peak levels for me, and having this trilogy, the whole trilogy, be Peter's origin story, I actually really liked that aspect about it. I liked seeing this character start off absolutely nothing like how Peter Parker is in the comic books, only to see him grow and change and evolve into the Peter Parker that we all know and recognize from the comic books. Like, by the end of this movie, he's pretty much the Peter Parker that we've been waiting for. He's on his own, he's alone, he's broke, he's got nobody with him. It was good to see him evolve and change to actually like grow into the one that goes with great power comes great responsibility. And that was really interesting. And they're doing the same thing with the new Batman, Rob Pattinson, the Batman movies with Rob Pattinson. Having him start off a little bit not like nothing like the Batman, not completely like Batman and Bruce Wayne, but as the films go on, he'll probably grow and evolve and develop into the more the persona that we know Bruce Wayne and Batman from the comic books. I'm glad they're doing that here with Spider-Man as well. But let's get into the multiverse elements as well. It was very nostalgic to see all these old players come back, and it didn't feel overwhelming. Like, I didn't feel like the problem with too much fan service, and a lot of Star Wars movies, I feel like this is a problem with the new Star Wars films, is that if you put in too much fan service, it alienates the casual viewer. And I know this for a fact because I'm not a big Star Wars guy. I'm more of a casual Star Wars fan, and the reason why I've never been able to get into the new Star Wars stuff is because the amount of references and callbacks like Star Wars media that I don't know about, I feel alienated a little bit, because I'm a casual viewer. And one of the reasons why I've always liked the MCU films is that they've always kept their fan service to a minimum. Like, most of them are just tiny little Easter eggs hidden in the background, and when they're not hidden in the background, they're usually put full front and center. They're part of the story, they're part of the plot. It's explained. You don't feel confused or anything. Like, they do it in a way where it appeals to everybody, and not just the hardcore fans. And to me, I think they did that well with this here. I was very worried about that at first, with bringing back all these old villains, but to be honest, it did enough where I don't think this would have alienated the casual viewer. I think if anything, this would have intrigued the casual viewer who maybe they didn't grow up with the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield movies, and they want to go back and have a look and see what those films were like. Like, this could get them on board with those movies. So it was done in a way where it was handled. The nostalgia was handled perfectly. And let's talk about the villains. Let's talk about Green Goblin first. Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe. I love this man. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin is fantastic. Granted, the 2002 Goblin suit, I never liked that, but one of the things I loved in this movie was the fact that they literally destroyed it. They destroyed the mask. They said, we're getting rid of that. I've always hated that suit because it always looked like a Power Ranger suit, and I always felt that Willem Dafoe was more creepy and more scary without the mask on. Like, Weird Al Yankovic even said this in a song, he's better without the mask on. And they do change that. He gets the hood. He goes to a more classic costume. But he doesn't have the mask. You can see his face, and that's because you don't need a mask for Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. Like the guy is so creepy and so scary, and so on the edge. You don't need a mask. Like he doesn't mean it. You don't need to cover his face. Like his expressions and stuff. It tells you everything. Like his expressions and like that when he like activates the pumpkin bomb and throws it at Peter Parker, like Aunt May, and Peter Parker, like face he pulls. It's such a goblin like face. It's terrific. I love it. And his performance, you'd think that coming from the fact that this was from 2002, that this would feel a bit cheesy. Nah, no. He's upped it. He's upped the horror factor for his goblin. Like his goblin has gone from horrifying to terrifying with this movie. Like he's like the levels of scary with his Green Goblin in this movie have just increased massively. Like he is creepy. Like that scene in the condo where like he just turns from Norman to Goblin in just a split second, and like it's so suspenseful and feels so. And he's trying to influence all the other ones, all the other villains as well to like go against what Peter's. These aren't curses; they're gifts. And he's like so creepy. Like that scene where Peter's just punched him constantly, and then like he's just turning his head, and every time Peter punches him, he just laughs more and more and more and more and more. And it's just so good. Like it's so creepy. It doesn't faze him like at all, and it's just terrific. Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin is perfect. I would have loved it if maybe he did stick around in the MCU, but I don't mind them getting a new Goblin if that has to be the case. If they do go back to the Green Goblin, like in the MCU, like I know they're going back to that in that Spider-Man animated show. What's it, sophomore year? I think it's called, or freshman year. I think it's called actually. I can't remember. Let's see where that goes down. What hole that takes us. Doc Ock, incredible. I love Doc Ock. I loved him. He's the best Spider-Man villain easily in live action. Like no other Spider-Man villain can ever compare to Doc Ock. Like he's still as menacing, as threatening, as scary as he was back in 2004. And I do like the fact that when he was taken from Spider-Man 2, it was from when he had Spider-Man. I had him by the throat. Like that scene where Peter is just about to do intelligence. It's a gift. It's not a gift; it's a privilege. Like when he's about to have that redemption, but he disappears. He gets taken straight before that, and that to me is really good actually. Like that's good. I don't think it erases his arc that much. I know some people might think it do, and if you do think that, that's fine. But to me personally, I don't think it erases his arc and his redemption from Spider-Man 2. Like it doesn't ruin it for me that much. Sandman. Actually, no. Going back to Doc Ock for a second, I do think Doc Ock had good comedic moments in this as well. Like the scene where Aunt May offers him a glass of water and says, "Oh, fresh or salt?" And he's like, "What?" And she's like, "Oh yeah, because you're an octopus." And then when Peter has that machine crash through the wall, and he goes, "Oh, he's really going to kill us all." Like he had some really good comedic moments, Doc Ock. Sandman. Actually, no. I'll get to Electro first. Electro, the biggest improvement, hands down, in this movie. I absolutely hated Electro in Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like he was just he was awful villain. He was blue. He wasn't threatening at all. Like if any, like the fact that they made him like this goofy dweeb who was a massive Spider-Man fanboy, and he was in the whole like, oh yeah, I'm crazy and insane. It was just, I don't know, like I just didn't like that. It was just very cringe, and it was like, and some of the dialogue he said in that movie as well. Like when he said, "Oh, it's my birthday. Now it's time to light my candle." Like that just made me. I have a friend who can literally vouch me on this. As soon as he said that line, I face palmed. Like that was bad. That line was bad. I've got a friend who can vouch me on that because he was. As soon as I face palmed, he looked at me and went, "Yep." And it was just terrible. But in this movie, massive improvement. He was threatening. He was funny, like actually funny. Like the humor he had was actually like the jokes. He was like, "Damn, you gotta watch where you fall." Like stuff like that. It was hilarious. Like not like Amazing Spider-Man 2 where they try to make him funny, but it was a bit like, is he meant to be funny? Is he meant to be sad? Like what's the feel for this guy? And he was funny, he's hilarious, but they also like upped his power as well. Like he was proper powerful in this. He felt like a threat. In Amazing Spider-Man 2, he did not feel like a threat. He just felt like a boss in a video game, and an easy boss at that. But I'm glad that they kept they did keep the Amazing Spider-Man 2 continuity. they just changed the character quite a lot. And and the little, like, when they hear when he is starting up, and when he first arrives, he is the blue character, and you do hear the do do do, like, briefly, like his theme tune, very briefly, but then he changes into and they do changes into the more like yellow electricity kind of electro from the main 616 run, and I felt like that was a lot better for him, because they explained it. It was like, he was new power. There's new power he was feeling. There's new electricity he was feeling. And I liked how he got the arc reactor as well. Really liked that. Actually, because it gave him, like, yeah, again, it made him more powerful and made him more unique. And yeah, again, like, having Tony Stark try and be part of this did feel a bit cheap, but at the same time, I did like that, and I really liked Electro in this movie, and I liked, I did really like him, and I think Jamie Foxx was finally redeemed for that god awful Amazing Spider-Man 2. And what else? Sandman. I just felt like Sandman. It was good to see him again. Thomas Hayden Church was good to see him again in this role, but he felt wasted in this. Like, he didn't. He just felt like we need another villain, Sandman. And yeah, the fact that he was like, at least the other two, like the other three, they died, so you could understand why maybe they came over. You could have easily maybe had it where maybe Sandman is like dying, like, because he's covered in sand, like maybe it's suffocating him or something like that. I mean, just something like that. Not like nothing's happening for him. Like, he's just there for the sake of being there. Don't get me wrong, but he did have a lot of good comedic moments though. Like when he's like, oh, not my Peter. What is going on? And he's like, new Peter, weird. And then, yeah, and it's just yeah, and he was he had some funny moments as well. And it was a shame that Thomas Hayden Church couldn't be on set. It'd be really good to see him in human form, but I get why, he was busy, so I had to CG him throughout the whole thing and then reuse archive footage from Spider-Man 3 just in reverse. Reverse archive footage, when he gets cured, which I thought was fucking hilarious, to be honest. Especially when Tony McGuire's like, no, stay here, don't move, just stay here. And it's like, well, yeah, because he's not actually there. Oh, God. Lizard, honestly, Lizard to me is the worst live action Spider-Man villain of all time. Hands down, the worst one. He's weak. He's just a weak villain. He doesn't have any there's no presence, there's no scale with him. Literally scale, because he's a lizard. There's no, like, tension with him. He's just boring and forgettable. And I like Amazing Spider-Man 1, like, I like it as a movie on its own. But Lizard is he's the weakest aspect about the movie. He always has been, he always will be. And I thought for this movie that maybe they could have at least changed up his look, get rid of the flat face, which I'd never liked. But no, they kept it. And if anything, he looks worse in this than he did in Amazing Spider-Man 1. Like, I don't know what it is, but I think the fact they made him a bit too bright green, yeah, it's bizarre, really. Yeah, so I didn't like him in that movie. In this movie, I didn't like him in 2001. I didn't like him in this. And again, when he gets cured, they have to use archive footage because Reese Fiennes, he couldn't come back. So they have to use archive footage from Amazing Spider-Man 1, and then a stunt double for that scene where the Empire State Building, the structure on that collapses. And if you look carefully, Tobey Maguire's version actually saves Dr. Connors because he's just transformed back. But it's a stunt double. It's very clearly a stunt double. Yeah. And also Electro, Venom, the Venom end credits scene. I don't care. I don't like the Venom movies. I've never liked them. So I don't care if he's only in it for a second. I do like the fact that he leaves a little bit of the symbiote to make way in case, for Secret Wars, so when Tom Holland Spider-Man gets the black suit, and, we see that again, hopefully played out good this time. Hopefully they let John Watts, or whoever directs the next Spider-Man movie, to deal with the black suit properly this time. And get a new version of them that isn't Tom Hardy, because those movies, man, those Venom movies are not good in my opinion. I don't like them. Now let's go on to, Thomas and Zendaya, they had chemistry. Their relationship was really good. Probably the best it's ever been. I was heartbroken when when she forgot him, but then she might come back in the sequel. I hope she comes back in the 5th movie, not the 4th. I think we need a break from them. I think we need Peter Parker on his own completely and meet, like, new people, basically. But let's get into the two characters that everyone wanted to see, And once we, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, dear God, it was so good to see him again. It was just so surreal because I never thought I'd see either of these guys again. Even though we were doing the multiverse stuff, like I never thought we'd see him again. Especially Andrew after everything, he got fired from from the Spider-Man franchise and had to reboot it again. It's just, it was good to see him again, and Toby as well. Like it was just good. It warmed my heart to see these two because I grew up on these two Spider-Man guys. I grew up with Toby as a kid. Andrew, I grew up with him as a teen. I was 17 when Amazing Spider-Man 1 came out, and then I was 19 when Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out. So I grew up on both of those guys. It was just good to see them again. And together in the same room as the new Spider-Man, it just blew my mind that it happened. And I knew there were so many leaks about it. Like there was so many leaks about this movie. The kitchen was pretty much flooded. I don't know how so much stuff leaked about this movie. I'm actually really convinced at this point that they just deliberately leaked shit themselves just to promote the movie, market the movie but not really market it. I wouldn't be surprised, but because this is Sony, so I wouldn't be surprised. But it was just good seeing them two again, especially Andrew, because Andrew is my favorite version of Spider-Man, hands down. I love Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man. It was good seeing him in this Amazing Spider-Man 2 suit as well, and not the TASM 1 suit. It was good seeing Tobey Maguire in his old suit. That was fantastic. It was just good seeing him again and seeing them interact with Tom, having this kind of bond of brotherhood, having them connect, and just that scene where they're just chatting on the top of the Empire State Building. That's one of the best scenes in the whole movie for me. Just them having a conversation, it was just so surreal. Seeing these guys from these other franchises that are not the MCU interact with the MCU for the first time. It was just so good. I was just gushing over it as well, and the way they got into it as well. Because as soon as the scene with Aunt May's death went by, and they got to the scene when they're in Ned's house, I immediately was like, how are you going to fit Andrew and Toby into this? Are they even in this movie? Are they actually going to be in this film? And then he does the portal, and you see Andrew Garfield in the distance, and I'm like, nah, that's Andrew. And he starts running. I'm like, yes, Andrew, come on, come back to me, Andrew Garfield, come on. And he jumps through the portal, and it's so it's good. It was I can't put it into words, but the feeling was so good just to see Andrew Garfield jump in to this portal, and he's there, and then he takes off the mask, and just to confirm it is actually him, and you see him interact with Zendaya and have this funny, quippy dialogue with them, and he is at his best in this movie. They gave him room, they gave that boy room to play in this, and he is at his best. And I want TASM 3 now. I want them to make TASM 3. I want them to make Spider-Man 4 with Tobey Maguire. I want both those movies. I don't care. I think, now you've got them both re-established, you can do them. Just make them. Why not? You can make so much money off of those guys. Another film with those two. But make them good, though. That's my one takeaway from this. Make them good films. Let Sam Raimi do what he wants for Spider-Man 4. Let Mark Webb finish off his trilogy. Finish their stories. Get them back as Secret Wars. Done deal, really. And then seeing Toby come back as well when they do the second ring, and he just walks in with all his goofy Tobey Maguire-ness. It's just so good to see him again. And when Ned just goes, he's just some random guy. That was just perfect. And I love the fact that Andrew's in the suit, Toby's not in the suit. His suit's covered up. He's more old and wiser. I'm glad they didn't de-age either of them, because Andrew Garfield, he still looks young enough. That man does not look he's pushing 40. He does not look 40. Tobey Maguire looks 47. He is 47, but he's a good 47. But I'm glad they let Toby age. Toby looks older because he is older. I'm glad they didn't de-age him, because I don't think that was a point to. Wasn't really a point for that, really, in my opinion. But it was good seeing all three of them together. They recreated the pointing meme. They're interacting. Have Andrew talk about what happened to Gwen, and have Toby hint at what happened with him and NJ. It was just good. I'm gushing so much about this movie because the movie was so good. So good. Daredevil comes back in this, and he's great as always. Again, same day as Hawkeye season 5, so it was good to see him and Vincent D'Onofrio confirmed for the MCU again. Such a good time. Aunt May's death was it was sad and it was impactful, because when she got hit by that glider, I was like, there's no way they could kill off Aunt May, and they did. And I was like, oh my god, they went hard here. And the fact that she's the one to give him the, great power comes great responsibility, it makes so much perfect sense, because that this whole trilogy has been one whole arc for Tom Holland's character. So he has to learn and grow with great power comes great responsibility over and over again throughout these two movies. And so, like, I know people got a bit upset because it wasn't Uncle Ben saying it, and it's like, well, if this is the first time he's hearing it, why didn't Uncle Ben say it? For me, in my theory, I feel like there was probably a point where Uncle Ben was going to say it to him. Like, maybe they were having a conversation, but then they got the conversation got interrupted, and before Uncle Ben could say that to him, he died. And of course, the reason why is Aunt May saying it? I mean, why, like, where would she pick it up from? Clearly from her husband, her late husband, as well, which, there definitely was an Uncle Ben at some point in this universe. Why she wasn't buried next to his grave, though, I have no idea. Why they didn't have, like, two graves with Uncle Ben and Aunt May like they would. So there is a bit of a mystery still there. But it was good to have Mr. May actually do something in these movies, because that's one of the things I've not liked about the past two Spidey films from the MCU. Is Mr. May's character just hasn't, like, her Aunt May just hasn't done anything except just, she's hot and that's it. So it's really good to have a movie where she actually, like, did stuff and actually contributed something to the plot, which you haven't really seen it in an Aunt May character since what was it? The one from the Raimi movies. Damn, I can't remember her name. Fuck. Rosemary Harris. That's it. Rosemary Harris. We haven't had Aunt May actually contribute something to the plot since, like, Rosemary Harris. And even then, like, she's never gonna be on par with Rosemary Harris. Like, that speech, everyone there's a hero in all of us speech from Spider-Man 2. There's, like, no speech from the MCU can ever top that. None. That is such a good moment. But it was good to have her die, and it was good to have her, like, contribute something to the plot, and having her die gave such a good momentum for his Peter Parker, Tom's Peter Parker, and having him learn, with great power comes great responsibility. When he's about to kill Goblin, it's Toby Spider-Man that, like, stops him, and it's like he's just has it look where he goes, do not do this, you'll regret it, because I've been through there, I've accidentally killed this man, you don't want this on your conscience. It was great to have Toby be this brotherly, almost fatherly figure to him, in a way. And, it was a bit sad. It wasn't Toby who said great power comes great responsibility, but I'm glad it was Aunt May. I'm glad Aunt May had something in to do in this movie. And I'm glad she got something to contribute to this movie. I'm looking forward to the future Spider-Man movies now. Like, like I said, he's grown up and developed into the Spider-Man that we all know from the comic books. He's alone, he's broke, he's street level superhero now, and he's I hope that this time we get to see more classic Spider-Man. So he's redone that new suit where it looks more like the classic Spider-Man suit, red and blue. It's just chef's kiss. That is a great suit, and it's homemade as well. There's no Stark technology. It's completely homemade. He's gonna make his own gadgets, his own web shooters. He's completely independent on his own. He's not relying on Tony Stark this time. I cannot wait for this next Spider-Man trilogy, man. It's going to be so good. And I can't wait. I really hope we see him interact with, like, more classic characters like Harry and Gwen, because he didn't meet those two until, like, college in the original run. Everyone thinks it was high school, but no. I think he met them in college, if I remember correctly. Unless I'm wrong, in which case feel free to correct me on that. Tom Holland. But yeah, I can't wait to see what Tom Holland does next. Spider-Man No Way Home, the best thing from Phase 4, the best movie from Phase 4, hands down the best that Phase 4 ever had to offer. Such a good film, such a good movie, and on that bombshell, let's go on to the next thing on the slate, which is Moon Knight. And again, same as before, it starts off really great and really strong. That final episode, in the final two episodes of anything, like, it goes so downhill so fast. And it starts off really interesting and really unique and cool, and you have this guy called Steven, and he's going insane, and then there's this mystery, and you find out what's going on here, and then it's just dull and boring. It just ends up being dull and boring. Like, Khonshu is a good character, though. Very interesting seeing him and Mark's relationship, how kind of awkward and dysfunctional it is. And then you have Steven being this adorable kind of British guy who just wants to go on with his life and doesn't know what the hell's happening to him. And Oscar Isaac sells the hell out of all three personas. Jake Lockley, Mark, and Steven. And he does a good job with all three of those. Personas. It shows just shows his range really, and Scarlet Crab, or Lele, I think the character's name. She was a decent character as well. She was fine. She got worked well with all three versions of Oscar Isaac. They had good chemistry together no matter who he was playing. So that was really good. Ethan Hawke's villain, honestly to God, like weak. Such a weak villain. And Ethan Hawke is such a good actor. And you give him this weak, dull, boring, like villain. It's just like the slow talk. It's like, oh, I want this power, and it's like, great. That's 99% of all stock MCU villains. I want this power, basically, because Conchu betrayed him or something. I can't really remember, and I don't even want to remember. I don't know if this was Marvel's way of getting revenge on Ethan Hawke for those comments he made on superhero movies back in 2017, I think it was. Probably wasn't, but who knows. And having Jake Lockley come in at the end, the very end as well, like that sucks. Like you had this build up to this third persona that Mark developed, and he just disappears. He just appears at the end, and that's it. Like that's fucking it. I really do not like that. I really didn't like that, and the fact that there's no word on the season 2 yet, so we don't know. Like, will Jake Lockley return? I hope so. Will Moon Knight return? I hope so, because that Moon Knight costume's actually really good. I really want to see Moon Knight actually interact with more people. But I do like though how it wasn't really. It was a standalone project. Like it wasn't canon with the MCU. It was canon in the MCU, but I didn't rely on it. It was more on its own merits, on its own terms. Kind of like how the MCU was when it first started. You could watch them all. You could watch any movie really, not really have to like watch any others, which is kind of another problem with Phase 4, which is so continuity heavy, where it's like, oh, to watch this movie, you have to watch this and this and this. And that's kind of been the thing with the MCU, but you didn't have to watch them. Like they gave you enough backstory to like get it. The only other film before Phase 4 that was like that was Endgame, I would say. But even then, like I don't think that would have confused the casual viewer. But yeah, it was good to have like something that was a bit more not broken away from the canon, but not relying too much on it, like on its own merits. And Doctor Doom reference was cool, like the Leveria reference at the beginning, like that was cool. Yeah. But overall, Moon Knight again starts off good, but those last 2 episodes actually were just weird. I mean, that twist where he's in the mental hospital, that's cool, but you knew straight up front that wasn't real. You knew that wasn't real. Let's go on to the next project, which is a movie, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. Really, really liked this one. I really enjoyed it, but it's Sam Raimi, so of course I'm going to enjoy it. Like, this feels like such a Sam Raimi movie from 2002. Like, it has that Sam Raimi superhero feel to it. Like, even down to, like, the color grading has that kind of, like, warm orange tint that the early Spider-Man movies had. To it, and it's a Sam Raimi movie through and through. There's the horror elements to it, the funky camera angles, the fact that Wanda is this brute force to be reckoned with, and there's zombies, and there's actual deaths in this, like really gory and really like hard PG-13 deaths. Like they went as far as they could with this movie, on the terms of like the people who are dying in this. And the deaths, I'll talk about deaths in a minute, but they were just brutal. Really brutal, and I really fucking like that. Benedict Cumberbatch is back as Doctor Strange, and he has not missed a beat. Like, he is pretty much entwined with this character, like how he was with Sherlock. But with this one as well, like, it just shows his ability to act, because he has to play, like, 3 versions of the same character, one of which is a zombie, which is really cool to see, and it does seem like express his acting chops, like when he's playing the Doctor Strange, and then the Doctor Strange at the beginning who dies and then comes back as a zombie, and then there's evil Doctor Strange. They have to fight. Oh my god, that scene where Doctor Strange is using the musical notes to fight evil Doctor Strange, like that scene alone just blew me away with how creative and how clever it was with the music and everything. Like, it just blew my mind. Sam Raimi is such a good filmmaker, man. I fucking love Sam Raimi. Um, and it was good that he was playing all three versions of the same character. I cannot pronounce the actor's name that played America Chavez, so I'm not even going to try. But America Chavez, the character, so good in this movie, so fucking good. She was you rooted for her the whole way through. You wanted Doctor Strange to keep her safe. You like when the Doctor Strange at the beginning was like sucking the power out of her at the beginning, and then he obviously dies. But you want Prime Doctor Strange to like take good care of her because you get to know her and you feel so like heavily for her, especially when she sends her parents through the multiverse and she's trying to find them, which hopefully might be. But I hope she finds her parents. I hope they go back to that. Maybe in Doctor Strange 3. Who knows? But she was such a really great character. You wanted to see her safe. You didn't want to see her in danger, which is really a sign of a really good character to me. And she was so likable as well. Like the actor that played her was so good at making her likable, which is what you want when you even have like someone that your main character has to protect at all costs. Now let's go on to the Illuminati. It was an interesting bunch to say the least. I would have actually preferred the Reed Richards from the 2005 Fantastic Four films rather than John Krasinski. But I can understand why they did it. He's been fan casted for so long, and hey, we got John Krasinski as Reed Richards, even though it's for this one movie. He's not coming back in the Fantastic Four movie. He just isn't. It's not happening. Agent Carter or Captain Carter, she was really cool. The Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, she was really cool as well. The guy from the end of the last Doctor Strange movie, I cannot remember his name, but he turned evil at the end and was going around getting rid of sorcerers. This alternate variant version of him was alright, like nothing too interesting. Like, their fight was alright, but he went down the most dull way possible. Like, he just fell down a hole, and it was like, oh, I can see why my Mordo, is it Mordo? I think Mordo is his name. I can see why my Mordo didn't like you. I'm going to say his name's Mordo, but I could be wrong on that. But the crowning achievement of the Illuminati, Patrick Stewart back as Professor X, Charles Xavier, and he is in the suit. He is in the gold chair from the 90s cartoon. You have the playing as he fucking goes down like the hallway and turns, and it is just so good. It's so good. It's so good to see him back again as well. Like I didn't think he'd come back after Logan. Like he died in Logan, so I didn't think he'd come back, but he did, and which was really good to see. But I really sucked how they killed him off like again, which is the third time. Like we need to stop killing Patrick Stewart off stop killing off Professor X, please. We've already done this song and dance 3 times already now. Come on, enough is enough. Stop killing him. But the other deaths as well, like Wanda snapping his neck. Black Bolt as well. I completely forgot about him actually. I'm glad they gave Black Bolt from the Humans TV show another go because he deserves it. Like Team Humans wasn't a fair shot to him, so I'm glad they put him in a good like comic book accurate outfit. And the way Wanda kills him just crushes his head, takes away his mouth, and then his head explodes. And then she kills Monica Rambeau, Captain Marvel, with a crushing of a statue. She kills Reed Richards by like splitting him up into spaghetti so he bursts. She snaps Professor X's neck. She what she did to Agent Carter, she fucking throws the shield at Agent Carter and it just so hard it fucking like slices her in half. Like that is just brutal to me. That's so brutal, but so good at the same time. It's so good to have like deaths in the MCU, like actual deaths. It was just so good. The end scene with Doctor Strange being corrupted by the Darkhold, I really like that, especially when the third eye comes out. It did suck a little bit when in the end credit scene, in mid credit scene anyway, we saw him fine and well. But Charlize Theron's female Doctor Strange, I think that's what her character is, was really cool. I'm just glad she's in the MCU because I wanted to play Captain Marvel, but we got Brie Larson instead, which is fine. So it's good, and it sets up the third movie nicely, and I can't wait to see what the third movie does with them traveling through the multiverse, fixing up the incursion, I think it was called, with the incursion that Doctor Strange created. So that'll be really cool. The only things I didn't like about this movie were the romance between Doctor Strange and Christine was kind of weak. But to be fair, I mean, in the last movie it wasn't great, and also romance has never really been Sam Raimi's strongest suit. I mean, MJ and Peter and MJ's relationship from the Spider-Man trilogy was just terrible, really bad. And even like like the Oz movie he made, the romance between Oz and the witch and the witch was just not great at all. But even then, like, and I think as well, like, even though like, because the rumors that were running around about this movie about all the cameos and stuff made me think like, oh no, is this going to be like Cameo City basically? And it wasn't that. It wasn't Cameo City. But it was. But even then, it just didn't take advantage of the multiverse angle well. Like they just blasted through like a ton of different multiverses, and it's like I would have loved it. They just stopped by like a few, like that animated one would have been really cool to see. But like you can't have everything, I guess. And to our movie. Oh, and the end credit scene with Bruce Campbell was chef's kiss. I love Bruce Campbell. Like his cameo is just terrific. Um, I have heard there are rumors running around. Well, there's a scoop on Twitter that they wanted Scott Derrickson back for the third film. I really don't. I really hope not. I prefer Raimi's vision for Doctor Strange more than Derrickson's. That's not to say Derrickson is a bad filmmaker by any means necessary, but Raimi's vision for Doctor Strange suits this character way better. Like the horror element, the horror angle, suits it way better than what Scott Derrickson was trying to do with the first movie. So I really hope they manage to get Raimi back for the third movie. I really, really do. And yeah, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I had a good time with it. I didn't love it, but I really liked it, and I had a really good time with it. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this movie. Next up, we're on with Ms. Marvel. We're on with Ms. Marvel. Again, starts off good, finale lets it down. Same with all the Disney Plus shows. But Kamala Khan is a very likable character. I really liked Kamala Khan. I think she was a very, you really liked her as a character. You really rooted for her when she got powers and stuff and she was training. You really root for her to like master those powers. Speaking of her powers, I really liked the whole kind of how they looked. I think the CG on like the crystal effect on the platforms she was making, I think those were really cool. And I'm glad they did give her the stretching powers because it had a bit of a rubbery effect to it, but that's always going to happen when you have stretchy powers. We had like 3 Fantastic Four movies where that's been the case. I really liked her family as well. Like I liked her brother, I liked her mum and dad. I felt like that dynamic was one of the best family dynamics in the MCU. I think I had a really insight on on the culture of the Muslim community and everything like as well, and pretty from what I've been told, pretty accurate. Again, I don't know 100% if that's true, but I've heard people say that apparently it's pretty accurate. But yeah, I liked a group of friends as well. I think they were really likable. Like Bruno was a really likable character and a really good potential love interest in the future. Damage Control being the villains. I love how Damage Control is starting to become this brute force that's meddling in the superheroes' business and stopping them from coming into the woodwork, basically, and trying to like control the superheroes, basically. Especially after the Avengers have like gone, so that was kind of like their safe haven, and now the Avengers are gone, they can work as they please. Cameron was a very bland bad guy, and it was kind of obvious he was going to turn evil, like the villain that she falls in love with, blah blah blah. Like it was so obvious he was going to be the bad guy, and he just wasn't that interesting as a character. I'm sorry, like he just generic British guy, basically. And again, the finale does let it down quite a bit. It's just not interesting. And again, the conflict between it's cool that she's trying to fight off him and Damage Control, but yeah, and I just didn't really like it that much. I think it could have gone a bit more better and a bit more harder. But there was some aspect about the finale I did like, and that was the fact that Kamala is now a mutant in the MCU rather than an Inhuman. So in the comic book, she's an Inhuman, not a mutant, but in the MCU, they've changed this. My reasoning for this is that actually the original author of the source material actually did want Kamala to be, Ms. Marvel to be a mutant. She didn't want her to be an Inhuman. They changed that though because of the rights issues with Fox. So they had to change it to an Inhuman. And luckily, now that they've got the rights back and that's all been resolved, and they can go forward with making Kamala Khan a mutant. And I think that suits them much better, I think. Like having it be like a mutation, like this wristband actually triggered a mutation within her. That's what gave her powers. And it'll be, and when you hear the little thing again, I love that. I love how, again, they are just hinting. They are just hinting at the mutants. They are just stating, it's like they're saying they're coming. The mutants are coming, and I cannot wait for them to get set up in the MCU, because that is just going to be fire. That is just going to be so good. And I do believe that phases 7 and 9 will be the mutant saga, hands down. It will be known as the mutant saga. Like, it has to be. What else are you going to call it? Like, you're hinting at the mutants so much in this past phase, especially. It's got to be the mutant saga. Next saga has to be the mutant saga. That's going to cause so much chaos in the MCU completely. So overall, Captain Marvel, again, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. I thought it was a solid time. A likable character. Oh, the costume, actually. Her costume is really good as well. Good supporting cast. The last episode, though, really let it down, but that's to be expected with these MCU shows. I think this would have been better as a movie. I think a lot of these MCU shows would be better as movies, to be honest, but they won't make them as shows, so I guess make them as shows. Also, the end credits scene where she swaps with Brie Larson. I thought it was kind of cute. And sets up the Marvels very well, which I'm looking forward to seeing. I know it's been delayed recently, but they've delayed a lot of stuff to try and quality control because they've had a lot of too much content in the past few years. Well, this past 2 years, in fact. So I'm glad they're slowing down now. But yeah, Ms. Marvel, it was a good time. Good time. If you want to watch it, go ahead. I'd recommend it. What I would not recommend, though, is the next project we're talking about, Thor: Love and Thunder. Oh god. Oh dear. So here's the thing. When I saw Thor: The Dark World almost 10 years ago, Thor: The Dark World is nearly 10 years old. Fuck me. Oh god. So when I saw Thor: The Dark World 10 years ago, nearly 10 years ago, my opinion on it at the time when I came out the theater was, I liked it. Looked fine. But this was back when I was 18. My critical thinking wasn't very good. Not as good as it is now, I think. Because as the years have gone on and the years have changed, my opinion on that has changed, and I do not like that movie anymore. I think Thor: That World is boring, dull, just not interesting. Bit of a slog. The villain is just weak. Like, Chris Eccleston deserves so much more better than this. And yeah, I think the same with Thor: Love and Thunder. I saw it. Thought it was good when I first saw it. After thinking about it for a while, don't like it. I think I'll think about it really hard. It was one of those things where it sucks that I didn't like it, but that's to be expected. That happens sometimes. You think, oh yeah, I'm definitely this movie's gonna be good, and then you come out of it and you think it was okay, and then you think about it more and more and more, and then you're like, nah, that sucked. And that was kind of like Thor: Love and Thunder for me. It's changed over time. Changed a lot more quicker than I thought. It changed in about a month, I'd say. I think a lot of it was just the humor. Like, I think it went so far with the humor. Like, the humor was just way too far with that shit. Like, it was just joke after joke after joke after joke after joke. Like, there was never time for you to breathe. There was no, like, drama, no conflict, no stakes. Like, you go back to Ragnarok, yeah, there's humor, but it's also got stakes, it's got drama, it's got emotional moments that help give it more weight, make it a more powerful piece of superhero movies than this, where it's just joke, 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 joke. And that's just it. And it tries to have emotional dramatic moments, but because the rest of it is all joke, 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 it undermines it well, and it just doesn't come off well. Like when Christian Bale, Gore the God Butcher is wasted in this. He would have come in such a cool villain, but he is just wasted in this. And it's just like, why? You've got Christian Bale in this role, man, and you've wasted him. It just wasn't an interesting character. And he's called Gore the God Butcher. Why don't we see him butchering any gods? Like, we see him kill one, and then the rest of it's just called off screen. And it's like, why? No, I want to see Gore kill some gods. I want to see him kill gods, damn it. Let him kill gods. For God's sake. Literally, for God's sake. Natalie Portman's back as Jane and Mighty Thor. When I first heard that, I thought it would be really cool because obviously, that involves her having cancer, and that could be a really good start. Good where she has cancer, and that's the conflict where he finds out she has cancer and he's trying to fix it. But at the end of the day, again, because while killing her off at the end was unexpected, I thought they would resolve that at the end. it just felt watered down. The whole cancer thing felt watered down. It just felt drowned, and with the humor and stuff, it felt drowned of any dramatic weight to it. It was just joke, and just joke after joke, and just took away any amount of dramatic, tension or weight to it as well. I just don't understand. I don't understand how that could have happened. I mean, killing her off the end, it was unexpected. I'll give it that. But I don't know. It just didn't have a lot of dramatic weight for me. And Thor, my God, Thor, he's an idiot in this, like an actual idiot. And I know he had a lot of comedic moments recently, but he never felt this idiotic. He didn't feel like stupid. And in this one, he feels like such a moron. It takes away from his character, and it's like, you had this character be so good, just so good before. Like Ragnarok made a good balance where you had funny Thor, but you also had serious Thor as well. But in this one, he's just a moron in this, and it's just like the scene where Jane's telling me she has cancer. There's no weight to that. There's no drama. There's no conflict. There's because it's just drowned in jokes. It's all jokes, and it's like, why is there so many jokes in this? And they're not even funny jokes either. Like, a lot of the humor in this is just flat, really flat. So yeah, he's just a massive idiot in this. Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie as well was just wasted here. Like, she was such a cool character in the last movie, and then he's back and she doesn't really go into any detail. Like, we understand why she hates being king of Asgard, but they didn't really dive much into it except I'm bored, and that's it. Also, where the hell was the queen? Like, I remember we were told in Comic-Con 2019 she'd be looking for a queen, and she didn't find a queen. Where is a queen? There was a scene where she flirts with one of Zeus's servants, but that's literally it, as far as I'm aware. Like, there was no, where's a queen? Where's Valkyrie's queen? I want Valkyrie to have a queen, goddammit. I was promised a queen. I was promised a lesbian marriage in this movie, and I didn't get it. I was promised representation, but it didn't happen. So yeah. So that kind of sucked. But now let's get on to the CGI, and let's get on to the massive problem with Phase 4 in general. Phase 4's CGI has been some of the weakest I've seen, and we know why. Like, if you don't know why, a ton of VFX artists actually got on Reddit and started ranting about how they hated working for Marvel, how they gave them such tight deadlines, how they would change things last minute, which you really shouldn't do, especially with visual effects artists, and how they're being way too overworked, way too, being just really overworked and, trained, CGIing things that don't need to be CG. Like, Thor's helmet in this movie is CGI. Why? You don't have to CGI that. Just make an actual practical helmet. You don't need a CGI helmet. There doesn't need to be. And there's times when they had to, give these movies and projects patch updates. Like, with No Way Home, they were fixing the CGI while the film was still in cinemas. Like, they were sending patch updates to the cinemas, so you could update the film, which version of the movie. And it's like, you really should not be doing that. Like, I'm sorry, but once the effects are done, they're done, and that should be it. This is not a video game where you can just patch, or like an iPhone or a phone or an iPhone where you can just patch. It's just weird, man. Like, the Cats movie did that from 2019, remember? Where they had where the CGI wasn't completed, so they fucking did patch updates for it. Like, why is Marvel doing the same thing? Like, Marvel should be aiming to not do the same thing. That's the aim should be to not do the same thing. So hopefully with this then delaying a bunch of products, they'll hopefully be able to get the CG right in the future. But in this movie, a lot of CG feels wonky. Thor's helmet, where that vision of that kid in that, when that CG felt so off to me. And then there was that clip of Taika Waititi and Tessa Thompson making fun of the CG and how unfinished it is. It's like, dude, come on, man, they're overworked. They're really overworked, and they were literally talking about how the VFX artists were talking about how they would see people punch make holes in walls with their fists because they were that annoyed and frustrated, and how they're trying really hard to find other work elsewhere. And VFX artists are treated like such crap in the industry as well. This is not even the secret; it's an open secret. The guys who did the Sonic movie, for example, the Sonic Hedgehog movie. They had to like delay the film by 2 extra months so they could fix up the model because they did the first one and that didn't go on so well, even though it was the studio who wanted that and not them. And now it's like then they went bankrupt. They went bankrupt as soon as Sonic the Hedgehog came out. They went bankrupt. Delayed the movie by 2 months, worked with their asses off. VFX company went bankrupt, and that to me is just it's poor. We need to treat our VFX artists a lot more better. Those guys work so hard to like give us good effects in good movies, and they deserve better than this, way better than this. Yeah, that's my rant for the day. Korg, he wasn't funny in this. He was just annoying. Same with Russell Crowe's Zeus. The end credits scene with Hercules was cool, I guess. But I don't know I don't know how they're gonna follow with that. I don't know how well this film did at the box office. To like, if they're gonna warrant a fifth Thor film. I do like Thor being a dad. Like that's cool, I guess. But yeah. So Thor: Love and Thunder, didn't feel the love, didn't feel the thunder. So yeah. And now onto the big one, the big project, the one that everyone complained about, ranted about, went on about, She-Hulk. And for me, I didn't get it because for me this show is it's okay. It's just okay. Like it's not bad, it's not good. It's just okay. It's just alright. It's average. It's fine. It's alright. It's fine. It's not funny. It's funny in places, but it's not funny in others. It's just an average okay piece of television. Like that's literally that's all I can say about this show. Like, and I don't understand what the whole vitriol was towards it. I mean, yeah, okay, there's a big feminist angle, but yeah, there would be. It's about a female lawyer, and having to go through the things that a lot of female lawyers have to go through, in that industry, and the CG in this one was terrible to start off with anyway. It got better as the show went on and on and on, but yeah, the CG there was definitely times when She-Hulk was looking a lot more like Fiona from Shrek. Uh, yeah. But Jennifer Walters was a likable enough character. You did root for her throughout most of the show. At least I did anyway. You understood she got given these powers. She didn't want these powers. She just wants to be a lawyer. And you do see how the She-Hulk persona. Well, you get a taste of how it ruins her life, but you don't. I think they could have delved more into that. But you do get a taste of that, how She-Hulk kind of interrupts her life and kind of causes problems for her and causes a lot of conflict for her. And I'm getting really tired of Smart Hulk now. He was funny in Endgame, but you know what? I miss Rage Hulk. I miss him. I miss when Hulk fucking smashed. I missed it when Hulk, got angry, smashed shit, fuck shit up. I miss that Hulk. Where is he? Bring him back, man. It made me the man I am today. I just bring him back. Bring fucking Rage Hulk back. I don't want Smart Hulk no more. I don't want that shit no more. Bring him back. Bring Rage Hulk back. The humor overall for this show was but again, it was just okay. Like some of the jokes were funny, some weren't funny, some didn't land well. It wasn't perfect by any means necessary, but it wasn't like cringe. I wasn't like cringing at the jokes. It was just some was funny, some weren't. The twerking scene, honestly, I don't get the controversy surrounding the twerking scene. It's like I saw people being so, oh my god, the MCU is dead. The MCU is gone. They showed people twerking, and don't get me wrong, the scene's not good. I'm not saying I'm not saying that's a great scene with her twerking with Megan Thee Stallion. But it's not like the be all and end all. It's not going to end the MCU. The MCU is not going to die because two girls performed a dance move that has not been relevant since 2014. I think that was the last time twerking was relevant back then. Unless it's come back and started recently, I don't know. I don't keep up to date with that shit. So I know the controversy surrounding that. Matt Murdock was great as per usual. But he's always good at this point. Him hooking up with She-Hulk though, I was actually quite shocked by that. I was like, damn, I didn't think there was going to be a romance between him and Jennifer, but yeah, there was. And I thought it was fine. It was a fine romance. But yeah, it was just good seeing him. Just seeing Matt Murdock again. The suit that he had, the more yellow looking suit, I didn't mind it. But I do miss the red. But I think that's because I'm so used to seeing Daredevil in red. I mean, it might take some time to get used to if that's the suit he's wearing for Born Again. I do think like the jokey side to him. I know why they did it. It's a comedy. You know, he's got to be a little bit more jokey. I just hope they do kind of go back to the gritty seriousness of the Netflix series with Daredevil Born Again. I don't mind jokey Daredevil, but I feel like if I saw that a lot, that would get on my nerves. It's a bit like Smart Hulk. You know, you see it a few times. If it was like sparingly, that was cool, but now it's annoying. I do hope they do go back to the more seriousness of the Hulk. Side characters, Vicky and Pug, they were fine. Titania was an odd villain, just not very memorable. Not a bad villain, just not very memorable. Todd was the same. Nice Abomination was just like, why? Like, I wanted to see Abomination kick some ass. I wanted to see him get angry and like have revenge. I didn't want him to be nice. Why was he nice? I didn't like that. The meta humor I think was fine for the show because it works well for the character of She-Hulk. Because obviously in the comic book she broke the fourth wall like all the time, and I do think it's good for, you know, because we got Deadpool 3 coming into the MCU, and so it's good to establish that fourth wall breakers do exist in the MCU, you know, before Daredevil gets his debut. Let's just say that. I feel like, I don't know, maybe they did a more serious approach. Maybe that would have been better. But I don't know. I just don't know with this show. I don't know if She-Hulk. You know, it was just okay. It was just fine. It was just average. Not really anything to really write home about. What was home to write home about though was Werewolf by Night, the first special presentation from Marvel Studios, and probably the second best thing in Phase 4, hands down. It was so badass. It was such a great like callback to the classic monster movies. I'm really glad they like committed to that. You know, it felt like an old classic like monster movie, like old black and white. Looked very cheap, but I think it was meant to look cheap because, you know, it's meant to reminisce that time. Obviously, yes, there was some special effects in there, but you know, and you know the fact that the werewolf's trying to get his friend out, who I think was Swamp Thing. I can't remember his name. I'm gonna piss off so many people because I got that wrong. Sorry, Matt, if you're listening to this. But I love the werewolf as well. Like, he looked cool. The style and the tone, that was all cool. The kind of reminiscence that they have to try and get the stone before time runs out. That was pretty cool and very tense as well. I thought it was probably the best thing on Disney Plus all year, to be honest. Yeah, Werewolf by Night was pretty cool. And yeah, if more of this, please. More of this, please. Now let's go on to the last movie of Phase 4, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Dear God. Emotional, powerful, brave, and I fucking loved it. This movie was terrific. Chadwick Boseman's absence in this movie is felt throughout the entire thing, and it just drives the emotion of the story. Like, it's felt in the way as well. It's not just with the opening of his funeral as well. And I'm glad they don't like confirm that. I know they say like, oh yeah, he died because of an illness. So I'm glad they didn't actually make it cancer, because that's what Chadwick Boseman actually died from. That would have been a bit too on the nose. I do like how they deal with Shiri and her conflict as well, like how she was trying to find a cure for her brother, but she couldn't in time, and he died, and she blames herself for that. And it was so good to like have her kind of this be her story to come to terms with his death and to move on from it as well. But which the scene at the end with her on the beach, reminiscing of the past with him, that was kind of her finally trying to let go and move on. And then she also gets introduced to his son, who's also called T'Challa, which I also thought was very good. But his absence is felt throughout the entire movie. And Shiri is the star of the show. Like, this is her story, and she is so good in this film. And when she puts on the suit and she starts kicking Namor's ass, honestly, if Black Panther didn't look so good, it looks so good. Namor as well. Speaking of him, great villain, compelling, intriguing, menacing, like proper threatening. Another mutant as well. Like, it was just, I love the fact that they're twinkling the mutants. They're planting the seeds. The mutants are coming, people. They are coming. The mutants are coming. I cannot wait for them to get here. But he was such a good villain as well. He was proper, like, you felt like the danger that Shiri was in when she was fighting him. And the fact that he killed Romanda, the queen. He killed the queen of Wakanda. Like, she's dead. Like, I did not see that coming, like, at all. And it was so impactful because, Shuri, she's lost everything. She's lost her dad, she's lost her brother, she's lost her mum, and she's out for blood, she's out for revenge. And that's like, like you feel for her, you understand. So when she goes through the transformation to Black Panther and it's Killmonger she sees and not Chadwick, that to me is just pure genius because of the rage and the hurt that she has right now for everyone in her life gone. Um, he would be the one that appear, and they would have the most similarities to in that moment. And the fact that she does let Namor live, and she does let Namor live, which I think was good, because it sets up Black Panther 3 quite well, where he is like, oh, we'll keep their alliance for now. And yeah, the final battle was also really good, really well paced, really decent, very well choreographed. And again, you felt the stakes. You felt that the Wakandans were in like really great danger with these people, with Namor and his people. Like really great danger, really great danger. Riri Williams as well. She was a good addition. I really liked her. I can't wait to see more of her in Ironheart whenever that comes out, which I think will be next year. I wish it was a movie. I wish it wasn't a Disney Plus show, but what can you do? Hopefully they do well by it, because this was a really strong introduction to this character of Ironheart, and I really hope we delve more into that and her past and the connection she had with her dad and everything as well. My only gripe with this movie, honestly, it ran for a little too long. You did feel towards the end you were starting to feel that runtime as well, and that's movies are too long nowadays. That's just the way it is. But overall, Wakanda Forever was a strong end to the movie slate of Phase 4. The second best movie of Phase 4, just above No Way Home. I would say Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness is probably the third best movie. But a good strong end to the film side of Phase 4. And the last but not least, we get to the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. So this one, when I heard they were doing a holiday special, I was like, oh, cool. And overall, it was a fun nice little special and a good prelude to Volume 3, which comes out this year in May, which I am very much looking forward to. I cannot wait for Volume 3, but this was a good kind of holdover for it. It's good, a nice little bonus adventure with the Guardians before we get to their final adventure, because it is confirmed that this movie coming out is their last one for them, and I'm going to miss the Guardians because I love the Guardians of the Galaxy. The second film I didn't like very much, but the first film, God, I had a good time with that movie. Such a good time with that film. I might watch it again now after recording this, because fuck it. It's such a good movie, man. Such a good film. It was just a fun little special, and it was just a fun little special. Kevin Bacon was fantastic in it. His comedic timing, the fact they kidnapped him was so hilarious. Peter Quill having a sister, as well. I cannot remember his sister's name. It's the girl with the antennas. I cannot remember her name. I'm so sorry. I'm doing really bad with names here. But having that moment where she tells him he's a sister, and that's such a sweet moment. It's such a nice, good, gentle, fun Christmas moment, and it was so good. The little nods to the Star Wars Holiday Special, because Guardians has always had a Star Wars kind of edge to it, a space opera edge to it. And the little nods to it, like the animations at the beginning, and I think Mark Hamill is in it. I think I may have noticed him like drinking at one point, dressed up as an alien. I don't know if he was in it though. I hope he was though. It was just a fun little holiday special and a good time, and just a nice soft ending to Phase 4 overall. And that's pretty much Phase 4 in a nutshell, really. To me personally, looking back at Phase 4 now, I feel like Phase 4 feels a lot like Phase 1, in a sense that with Phase 1, this is our first go at doing this. Let's experiment, let's try new stuff, let's get a formula established that we can use for the future. And with that was for Phase 1. And for Phase 4, it feels a little bit similar to that, where it's like we've just wrapped up our first full saga, the Infinity Saga. We're starting our new saga, the Multiverse Saga. Let's use this phase to experiment a little bit more, try new things, try new formats. Let's try making some TV shows. It feels very experimental. Do I think it's paid off? Honestly, no. I don't think it has paid off for them in the long run, though, because I think, the fact that we've been bombarded with all these these projects with all the wonky CGI, and the fact that they don't really know how to make a TV show. Really, like a lot of these Disney Plus shows feel like movies that they just chopped up into episodes. Um, and yeah, I don't think it's worked. It's gone too well for them in the long run. Again, I don't hate Phase 4, but there's not really, only with the exception of No Way Home and Wakanda Forever, there's not really a lot of stuff that I've loved in this phase. And with these Ant-Man reviews that have come out for Quantumania, which is the start of Phase 5, yeah, I feel like Marvel's started losing their magic a little bit. I think the magic's starting to wear off. I think they might actually might start going through a similar phase that Pixar went through during the 2010s, when they were making a lot of sequels and a lot of average movies. They had some gems like Inside Out as well. I'll do a full podcast episode on Pixar in the future maybe. But yeah, and it just feels like they've lost their magic a little bit. But who knows? Maybe the fact that they're starting to space out the projects now, that could do well for them in the future. And speaking of, let's go into the future. So for Phase 5, I want either less TV shows or no TV shows at all. I don't think Marvel really knows how to do a TV show very well. Because again, with the finale is the most important episode. You need to wrap it up. And that's the problem here. They don't know how to wrap up a TV show. And they don't know how to they don't really know how to work out the miniseries format. Like here in the UK, we know how to do the miniseries format like the back of our hand. Like that is our format. That is our TV. Like our TV, like a full season for us is like 8/5, 8/3, depending on like what the show is. Like that is our format. Like we know how to do that like the back of our hand. Well, writers anyway. Not everyone. But for Disney Plus especially, because Netflix has done a good job at that formula, but for Disney especially, they're struggling really bad. Like a lot of these just feel like movies. Like the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show, even though I did like it, there was a part of me that does agree with the general consensus of this would have been better as a TV show, not a film. And I feel like that's the same with the MCU. For Phase 5, I want either less TV shows or no TV shows at all. And I do want Marvel to go back to focusing more on movies, because I think that was their bread and butter. Well, until Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania came out. I've not seen it yet. I don't know if I am going to go see it, but hopefully, fingers crossed, it's good. Let's see. But that being said, though, they are slowing down. They're focusing more on quality rather than quantity. Hopefully this is enough to push them this is enough to get the MCU back on track. Again, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania could be just a rocky start to Phase 5. Maybe Phase 5 will end up being really good. I hope so anyway. And we still got a really exciting future ahead of us, like, for the MCU. Like we've got the fourth Spider-Man film coming out. We've got Deadpool 3 with Hugh Jackman as Wolverine coming back again. I cannot wait for that. We've got the Kang Dynasty, Secret Wars, Fantastic Four. We've got Thunderbolts. We've got all these really cool projects coming out that I am interested in seeing, that I'm excited to see, and I can't wait to see. And we've got Daredevil coming back to TV, and it's going to be 18 episodes long. They're going to actually have the time to base down and develop it. That's going to be fun. We've got loads of... I just burped for a second there, sorry about that. We've got a lot of stuff to look forward to here, and I just hopefully... I just had to burp again. Sorry for that. We've got a lot of cool stuff to look forward to, and hopefully it's a good time. I just hope it's a good time. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this podcast episode. Everyone, thank me. I'm struggling with my outro here, but but thank you so much for listening to me. It's good to be back. It's good to reboot this. I cannot wait to do more episodes like this in the future. I really cannot wait. It's gonna be so much fun. If you want to be a guest on this, just DM me and we'll set something up and you can be a guest. Because it'd be good to get some guests on and just talk about stuff with people, different opinions. It's gonna be so much fun. I'm probably actually gonna use this for movie reviews. I'm probably gonna do like video essays and stuff like that for this channel mainly. But for movie reviews and stuff, I probably will use this podcast as a base because um, in terms of trying to structure a review, I'm just better off just doing this, just talking about it for like waffling on for like days on end and going for spoilers with you guys. So yeah, but thank you so much for watching. And if you could do me one teeny tiny little favor, that would be so good. I have a bachelor and a master's degree in film and TV production, but unfortunately, trying to bounce back into the industry, particularly after COVID as well, has been very difficult. I've been applying for traineeships, internships, like you can't imagine. But trying to find work, even voluntary stuff, is like so hard now, particularly after COVID as well. So that's why I've created a website. In the links below, you'll find my website, Connor for Hire, where you can learn more about me, learn about the projects I've worked on, the roles I've done. See if you want, and if you want to hire me for like a project you've got in the works or want me involved in your project, just let me know. If it doesn't matter if you're a student, professional, amateur, I don't care. I want to make a comeback. I want to come back into the industry. I want to get back to like making projects and movies of my own, and projects of my own. And I feel like with you people helping me share this website around, that'd be fantastic. Like I'm not here for subscribers. I'm not here for likes. I'm not here to be the most subscribed channel on YouTube. I'm just here to be creative, to make content for you people to enjoy, and to promote my website around. And that's the only thing I ask. You do not have to subscribe to this channel. You don't even have to like these videos. You don't even need to be a regular member here. But just as long as you share my website around, the more you share that around, the more videos I will make for this channel, because that is the only thing that is important to me, is getting my website shared around as much as possible. It is made from Wix, but hopefully once I get a steady income coming, I can move over to Squarespace. I think it is Squarespace. Yeah, I can move over to Squarespace, and is it Squarespace? The other one, the really posh one, that's a website builder. I think it is. Yeah, it is Squarespace. Yeah. So I can move over to Squarespace and create even more an updated 2.0 version of my website. That's a bit more flashy, a bit more fancy, if you like. But yeah, and I'm going to be posting these videos on the website as well, keeping it updated, trying to keep it as active as possible. So guys, thank you so much for listening to this, me ramble on for like ages. Please share my website around. Thank you so much for tuning into this first episode. I cannot wait to make more. And yeah, let's get 2023 off to a very solid start. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you whenever I see you next.